Financial reports sponsored by Interactive Investor.
Italy is expected to have its first far-right-led government since the Second World War, following the election victory of Giorgia Meloni and her Brothers of Italy party. Well, it follows a right-wing victory in Sweden and gains for the far-right in France and Spain. Well, joining me now is Dr. George Newth, a lecturer in Italian politics at the University of Bath and an expert on the far right in Italy. Good to talk to you today. The success of the far right in Italy may be viewed with surprise by some, but this has been a slow and steady campaign, hasn't it?
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Yes, it has been a slow and steady campaign. It's been actually a slow and steady normalization of the far right since really, at the least, the early 1990s. I would contest the assertion that this is Italy's first far-right government since the Second World War. Meloni's success here is significant in the sense that she'll be the first prime minister from the neo-fascist Brothers of Italy, which are the heirs of the Italian social movement, which was in itself set up to commemorate Mussolini's regime in 1946. But her predecessors, the National Alliance, did actually take part in 4 governments between 1994 and 2011 under various iterations of an alliance led by Silvio Berlusconi. Also part of this alliance was the Northern League between 1994 and 2011, which was another far-right party. So this normalization and mainstreaming of the far right has been a long time in the making, and Berlusconi himself has contributed to this by a kind of revisionist approach towards Berlusconi, saying he's a great statesman, that the only mistake he made were the racial laws of 1938, but apart from that, he was a good person. So that's one key thing here, I think, is important to emphasize that, yes, this is a significant result for Brothers of Italy and for Italy and for Europe in general, but it has been a long time in the making, not just in the campaign.
But in terms of the comparisons and harking back to Mussolini, there will be those who will say that, you know, this is a very, very long time ago. Why is that relevant to what they're campaigning on now?
Well, Meloni has done something quite clever during the campaign in the sense that she makes references to Mussolini, such as her slogan of God, country and family, and also her main campaign slogan, which was ready, we are ready, which is also something used by Mussolini. And at the same time, she'll say, oh, we're not fascists, we have nothing to do with that regime. And what she's doing really is she is situating fascism in the past. And so while we may not see a return to kind of jackbooted fascist squads on the streets or a banning of all political opposition, she nevertheless draws on many of fascism's reactionary ideas. And I think we need to call it out for what it is, and that is a form of fascism. So when she refers to God, country and family, what she's talking about there is a specific type of God. She's talking about Italy's Catholic identity. She's already spoken about Europe having what she labels Judeo-Christian roots, which is one of the oldest Islamophobic tropes in the book. She talks about a naval blockade, so blocking migrants from coming into Italy, which plays on break replacement theories, far-right break replacement conspiracy theories, and a vision of Italy as somehow racially pure. And this is not to mention also her pro-nativist policies, which talk about, which basically target LGBTQ people through its opposition to same-sex marriages and prioritization of same-sex couples for adoption. And she's also promised to put significant curbs on access to abortion to address what she calls the emergency of Italy's declining birth rate. So she's benefiting from a normalization and mainstream of the far right, which actually goes beyond Italy and puts many people's lives at risk.
But in terms of all those things, these are not things that she has hidden during the campaigning. People still voted for her. What frustrations do you think in Italy at the moment have led to people voting for parties like this when they possibly wouldn't have in the past?
Well, certainly people have voted for her, but I think it's important to point out here before we get on to why people have voted for her is that turnout fell to a record low in this election. It's at 63.91%, and that's 9 points down on 2018. And just to put that in context, Italy is a country which traditionally has a high level of voter turnout. So voting levels were especially poor in southern regions in this election. But let's look back to 2008, for example, when the turnout was 80.5%. So that's 16 points down in this election. And I think what that speaks to is a general kind of disenchantment and disillusionment with the political class in general, and that includes the far right. And what the far right has done is really capitalize on this disenchantment, on this disillusionment, and capitalize on the fact that many voters have just not been mobilized, have not gone out to vote for the centre left or the Five Star Movement or the Green Party, because they don't feel that they're being offered anything. So it speaks to really a wider malaise of democracy. And I would be very careful about framing this as a kind of victory for the will of the people, really, because this is a very low turnout. And actually, the previous far-right alliances under Berlusconi actually received a much higher vote than what this far-right alliance has received this time.
OK, there we must leave it. We're out of time. Dr. George Newth, really interesting to talk to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.